How's it going, everybody? I got to kill this music. I'll tell you that. Right before we get started, guys, welcome back in to the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I am your host, Robert Tay, joined with me, co-host Ian Angelo, and a very special guest joining us. You guys know him, Finn Sands, a.k.a. Celtics Insiders. Man, oh, man. The Celtics, they were in very rare form tonight and not in a good way. Tonight, the Celtics blew a 21-point lead in the fourth quarter. I know it says 22 because they led by as many as 22, but that lead in the fourth quarter was 21 points with right around 8 minutes to play. Celtics obviously trying to protect that 11-game win streak. They fell short of it tonight as Dean Wade in the Cleveland Cavaliers mounted a comeback on the Celtics. Guys, I know I'm going to ask you your thoughts, your initial takeaways, but a little stat for you. Dean Wade himself outscored the Boston Celtics tonight in that fourth quarter, 20-17. An epic collapse from the C's tonight, Finn. Before we get started, your initial thoughts, your initial comments, you kind of want to get off your chest.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me on. You look at the second quarter versus the fourth quarter. Like, I thought the way they played in the first half, moving the ball, making the extra pass, getting that open three-pointer. Like, it was there in the first half, but down the stretch, it looked like they kind of just went back to 2023 playoff Celtics basketball down the stretch where it was, all right, let's panic. Let's take isolation shots. Let's just get the shot clock down. And it just didn't work. I didn't like the way Tatum, obviously 1 for 11, 4 points in the second half. Like, that's a disaster. Porzingis, I thought, he didn't play that well in the fourth quarter, like his shot selection, some of the three-pointers he was taking. Like, I just think it was an ultimate collapse, and honestly, they were probably due for it, but I guess it's something you want to get out the way now, but it was definitely something we didn't expect and something that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The Celtics lost to a guy that looks like he should be on Love Island or something. Like, I don't get it, man. It was a rough watch, and it wasn't only the fourth quarter. They played terrible pretty much throughout the entire second half. Yeah, I don't know, man. Dean Wade, I don't know. I don't know, man. But yeah, Tatum didn't play good at all in that second half. Celtics as a whole didn't play good at all in that second half outside of Kristaps Porzingis in the fourth quarter, but that was just a rough way to lose a game. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie. If the Celtics are gonna lose an 11-game winning streak, it would be something like this. So
it would. And you know what? Do you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of, like, excuse my language, fuck around, you find out. Like we were talking about all last postseason. And that's what they did tonight. And again, we're gonna get into all of it. Missoula, the players, Tatum, Brown, right? Really, we're gonna talk about everyone. But the players tonight defensively just fell asleep. And I get it's Dean Wade. I get it. He's in a below average NBA player at best. However, you can't allow that to happen, right? If you allow an NBA player to, step into some open catch and threes, to kind of get going, to especially at home, to gain momentum, they're going to make a run at it. And this is a Cleveland team that is not going to quit, man. Like, you've seen it. Those Cavs, they're looking to prove something. They're at home without Donovan Mitchell up against a team with 11 straight wins. Like, they wanted it tonight. And I think Boston kind of fell asleep. I mean, Brown and Tatum were essentially useless in the second half, especially Tatum. 22 first half points, and then followed it up. Not just 22 first half points, guys. His stat line at halftime was 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists. He finished the game with 26 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 assists. And that rebounding number is a telltale sign with Tatum, I feel like. Tonight, 9 rebounds in that first half, 4 in the second. That tells me everything I need to know. I think just the effort was gone. I think they were like, all right, we got this one. We're up by 28 minutes left. We can just kind of play lackadaisically. And if Cleveland makes their shots, maybe, I don't know. It was just like, we haven't seen something like this in all year. I mean, this hasn't happened all year.
Yeah, honestly, just think down the stretch, it's like they didn't expect Dean Wade to take over like that. And look, role players sometimes are going to take over. It's just, especially against the Celtics, as we know, it's what happens. You look at Caleb Martin, Max Strus, like these guys in the past, role players have definitely gone off. But for me, what's unacceptable is the way the Celtics finished the game offensively. Like, screw Dean Wade going off. But the way Tatum played down the stretch with the isolation ball, like, did Jaylen Brown even touch the ball in the final minutes? Like, Derek White took 5 shots the entire game. Like, Derek White's obviously a role player, but I think we can all agree he deserves more than 5 shots. Drew Holiday only took 9 shots. Like, if you just go down the list, offensively, the execution was poor. It's like no one was making the extra pass.
Yep.
They were just so tight down the stretch, and it was just so reminiscent of last year's playoffs to me. Like, like, I know this is why they got Porzingis. We talked about it earlier a little bit, Rob, but it would have been nice to see Porzingis get in the post a little bit more instead of him having to launch a bailout 3 that obviously didn't go in because nothing went in down the stretch. But it's the things like that. They add up offensively down the stretch, and to me, that was unacceptable.
And you know what I want to mention is that this isn't the first time the Celtics have struggled down the stretch. And I get the metrics show that this is a great clutch time team. And I don't necessarily, not calling them not great, or I'm not saying they're not going to win the championship because of this, but something I've noticed is their execution when the game is close isn't really all that there yet. And again, there's still a lot of time to figure it out, but it feels like, or it felt like tonight at least, and I'm interested to hear what you'd have to say about this, Ian. It felt like tonight that they were just going to play, and they did it all game, but in the fourth, they were going to play isolation basketball. And if the shots went in, you figure if 3 more shots go in the last 3 minutes, we held on to that lead, and you think to yourself, okay, wow, that was close, but they didn't. And that's, goes back to the point I used to say is, winning cures everything. If you win this game, you think, okay, well, execution was bad, but they made the shots that mattered. They didn't do that tonight, Ian. And as a result of that, the isolation ball and hero ball did not work out for us.
Oh, what if I told you the Celtics went 8 of 25 in the fourth quarter and shot 0 of 8 from 3? Celtics shot 0 of 8 from 3 in the fourth quarter. That's just terrible. And it was weird because Tatum was 1 for 8 in that fourth quarter, and he just, I don't know, man. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, it wasn't just the fourth. It felt like this entire game, the Celtics could not get into a rhythm no matter what they tried. Like, even from the beginning, like, it felt like Jaylen Brown was taking, like, 5 threes in the first quarter for some reason. Like, he hasn't done that in, like, 2 months. Jason Tatum was the one that started the game scoring and then just completely fell off in the second half. Like, it just felt like the Celtics didn't have a rhythm whatsoever.
And you know what?
Yeah.
I want to address this comment because remember all the way back to that championship year run, start of the year, we blew that game to the Chicago Bulls. Marcus Smart said something that I think kind of is prevalent to today in this team. Everyone knows at the end of the game, the ball's in Tatum's hands, the ball's in Brown's hands. Mix it up. You got Kristaps Porzingis, who is the ultimate mismatch in the NBA. I'm kind of starting to think, like, I get it. Tatum can be your closer down the stretch. That doesn't necessarily mean he needs the ball in his hands on the last play every single time. There's different ways you can get him the ball. And I think tonight we're going to talk about that last play, but again, I think that's something that we should start seeing a little bit more of because, quite frankly, we saw it against Denver. We saw it, even against Minnesota when we won that game at home off the comeback. The last play before overtime was a Tatum mid-range pull-up jump shot that, fell short.
Well, see, another thing with that is the only offense that the Celtics were getting in the fourth quarter was when they were running the ball through Kristaps Porzingis. So,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, they should run the ball through Porzingis more. And honestly, if with the way that it was going, you probably should have let Porzingis finish out that game. And I know Jason Tatum is the closer, but it feels like this season he just hasn't been able to close anything. I mean, he's had a couple moments this season where he's hit the shots in the clutch, but when it comes to like the game-winning shot at the buzzer, it just feels like Tatum is just missing everything. And also, I don't know if this is coaching or not, but the fact that they run up the same play of Jason Tatum getting a fadeaway like at the elbow every single time, I think they ought to change up their last minute, offense because something's not working. And honestly, maybe you should just go to Porzingis in the post and let him try to do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not too often the Celtics are in these games going down the stretch where it's super close. That's just how good they are. But I think it's good to have a game like this every once in a while just to test where they are. And as you know, you guys have kind of mentioned, late game execution might be a little bit of a question mark. And as Ian said earlier, over 8 for 3, that tells me less about the shooting and more so about the way they played, because the way I'm looking at it is, if you look at the first half specifically, they were making the extra pass. I think Jaylen Brown had a couple free ones in the corner, top of the key threes from Tatum that were open. Down the stretch, a lot of those 3-pointers were just, oh, shoot, there's 4 seconds on the shot clock. Let's kick it out and have a bailout. Like, yeah, obviously, those probably aren't going to fall. But I think, when you kind of look at everything with the late game execution, it just builds up. It starts with Tatum, and then you realize, oh, Brown doesn't have the ball in his hand, or they need to run it through Porzingis more, and they have way too many bailout threes. And it's just like, for how good they are most of the time, they should be able to continue to play that well down the stretch. They have the talent, they have the chemistry, they have the ability to make the open passes, the extra passes to lead to open shots. And it's like they just freeze up. They get PTSD from the playoffs. And I do think they'll get over that hump, but it's good that they're addressing it now.
Yeah, well, I will say it wasn't a perfect 11 games. It was the highest over 11 games span. It was the highest point differential in wins in NBA history, with the Bucks and the Lakers in the 70s following a year, 71, 72, 70, 71, the following years. They each had it. So I will say that, but it felt like tonight, the best way to describe it was they were playing in 2022, where a lot of ice, even from the jump. I do agree with you, Finn. I think the ball was moving a lot better in that first half, but even there were a couple plays where Brown took the ball down court in the transition, and he went up with it when there was an extra pass, and Tatum he was hot, but he was really looking for the isolation. And they kind of had it going, that they had the hot hand, but I think they steered away from what was working all year long, which was moving the ball around and playing as a team and driving to the rim and kicking out and looking, hunting those catch and shoot open kick out threes. They steered away from that tonight. And I felt like that hasn't been anything that showed up this year. And it will be interesting to see what happens against Denver, because quite frankly, I just have this weird suspicion that they're going to come out and just, show up against Denver. And they haven't lost back-to-back games since November 3rd or 4th and 5th against the Timberwolves and the Sixers, which was their first 2 losses of the year. Started out 5-0, then they dropped those 2 in a row to go to 5-2. So I'll be interested to see what happens. But for tonight, I got to talk about Joe Mazzulla, man. I do. Now, a little, warning for what I'm about to say. This doesn't mean I want him fired. This doesn't mean I think he's the worst coach in the league, because it feels like there's two polar opposite sides and there's no in-between middleman. But tonight, Mazzulla was bad. Was really bad, because I understand that the players are the ones out there playing and performing, no doubt about it. But it kind of felt like even when he was calling a timeout, nothing was being done. There was no, I feel like something the Celtics have done really well is hunting mismatches. There was no mismatches being hunted. There was no, felt like kind of clear game plan. And then down the stretch, there's a timeout that happens at 7-minute mark. The Celtics at that 7-minute mark, led by, I believe, 17 points. From there on out, Cleveland continues to go on a 23-4 run. Or, I'm sorry, they led by 18. Cleveland goes on a 23-4 run. The next timeout doesn't happen until Boston's up by 1. And say it as you want, look at it however you want. That's an issue. A timeout, and I caught this on the broadcast. Drew Carter, who's been doing an awesome job with the Celtics, has said it. Missoula's going to let them weather the storm. And I sit there and I'm thinking, why, man? Why? Like, why is that something you feel is necessary? And then the last play of the game, obviously no timeout. However, guys, I want to hear your thoughts on Missoula tonight. Not the last 19 seconds we'll save for later, but in terms of that fourth quarter, because Finn, I know before the show started, we're talking about Maz, and you're a big Maz guy, and Maz has been growing on me, but I'm interested to hear what you thought about tonight.
To me, like I think when I'm looking at Joe Mazzulla, like it's very Joe like to not call a timeout, and honestly, that's what he's done the whole year, and for the most part, it has worked. I honestly, like, I think, when he did call that timeout with 7 minutes or something, like, yeah, you have to realize that Dean Wade's a hot hand and maybe we can't leave him open. But like, to me, honestly, I think it's more of a player's thing that they couldn't get the flow offensively. Like Dean Wade hitting these shots, they couldn't get out in transition. Like, I honestly just think the whole thing was a recipe for disaster. Sure, I think like Joe could have done more with getting Derek White more touches, for example, or Drew Holiday a couple more shots, or Porzingis in the post too. But I mean, where's Tatum and Brown saying, yeah, we got to do this too?
Right.
Like how much of that is truly on Joe? I think, as you said, the last 19 seconds or whatever is a whole different conversation.
Right.
But I mean, Joe's been doing the no timeout thing this whole season, and it has worked. So I don't want to sit here and point fingers at Joe because I think it's on the players as much, but I definitely do think he could have been better.
I agree. And real quick, Ian, this is why it scares me. It was something that popped up all year last year, and I ignored it. And then it popped up again against the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals in those first two games, and it really bit us in the behind. So that's the only reason why I wanted to address it, because I do think it's something I've been highlighting things all year. Nothing's really been highlighted the past 10 games, Ian. This one I'm highlighting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's always something that we've talked about. It's something that we're never not going to talk about. It feels like Joe Mazzulla just feels like if you're in the flow of the game and you're down, they want you to overcome it. And like Finn said, we haven't had a whole lot of experience this season to where that we would have to worry about it. So I mean, I'd like to say it was just one of those things where it's like, oh, it happens. It was one game, but like, I don't know. We've seen this pattern before, and it really was frustrating because you could tell that the Cavs were going on a run, and you could have called a timeout at least 2 or 3 shots before.
Right.
Like they were still playing. Like, you still could have let them play and still called a timeout 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 shots before the Cavs made it like a 1-point game. So I don't know. It's just kind of one of those things where you're never not going to have it with Joe Mazzulla, and it's frustrating because when they lose, that's easily something you can highlight, but
right.
I don't know. It's just something that we're going to have to deal with, and it's never going to – it's not like he's going to change it anytime soon. So
I know, and that's why it's a little upsetting, just because I don't want
Also, I want a preference. I don't hate Joe Mazzulla. I think he's been pretty great this season. I think from year 1 to year 2, he's been pretty great. I think this might have just been a bad game for everybody all around. And honestly, it felt like they weren't really in it. Like, the entire team wasn't in it, and they were all looking forward to Thursday. So
even when they were up by 23, it was still like, I don't know. There was just something about it where, again, I didn't expect them to blow it, but it just like they weren't playing great basketball. I think defensively we were solid. I think Cleveland was missing a lot of shots. And then obviously Dean Wade happened. But I also do think I agree with you, Ian, that they were so focused on that Denver game, which again, it happens. but it's not like you kind of were hanging around. Cleveland was there, 7-point game, all game, 5-point game, and then let it slip away. It's like, no, you're up by 23. That should have been a game in which you can just, it's embedded into your brain how to close those games out, and you just do it. And that's what's kind of, I think, the most frustrating part about this loss was that it felt like we were past this, because those last 11 games we've been playing have been so awesome, and they were doing everything right. And you're coming off of a 50-point blowout masterclass at home against Golden State. And then it's like, did you just what? It's, I mean, it happens, maybe 82 games, right? You're going to blow a lead. But it felt like with this team, they were putting up historic numbers over an historic stretch. And it's like, okay, did we just throw all of that out? Personally, I don't think we did. But I feel like that's what people are going to start saying. And I
honestly,
think
one thing I want to say, I feel like it was just the law of averages. You
Right.
can't blow a team out by 50 points and expect that shooting to come
Right.
and just happen
Right.
like, consecutive games. So honestly, I feel like you could chalk it up to a law of averages type thing.
Right. And I'm not going to lie, I was expecting to see some jaw-dropping 3-point attempts tonight. Not even. We only took 38 threes. So it was just such a weird, and we shot 40% from behind the arc. Our problem was, believe it or not, within the two-pointers tonight. We shot 15 of 38 from behind the arc. I'm going to do some quick math here. My math's not great. We shot 24. Ready for this? This is going to be good. For 24 for, I want to say, 56 from 2. Not good, man. Not good. So again, it's like, can I really be mad at that? Right? Like they understood the assignment, but it's like that. If it wasn't 22, right? If it was 11 or if it was 9, you would be like, you let it slip away. But it was, you're up by 21 with 7. So I think 7 to go. So I think that is the problem. Now it's time to talk about that last play.
Yeah, I got something good on that.
All right, I'm going to let you take it away then.
All right, I'm looking at Joe Mazzulla's presser right now, and he said, this is on Jason Tatum's last shot. I think it's just whatever the defense gives them. We just have to get into it faster. And I think Joe's on the money with this one.
Right.
All right, so you have your two things. That the first thing that people are going to debate is if Joe should have called a timeout or not. And I understand if he did, right, so we can draw up a play. I understand why he didn't, though, right, because they would have taken Darius Garland out of the game, and that's who Tatum ended up going at anyways. However, what I did struggle with is if you're down, I never understand why you drain the clock and take the last shot. And that's where I have an issue. I don't understand why Tatum didn't go straight at Garland, take the shot when, there's like at least 10 seconds left on the clock. So if he does miss, we still have a chance. Like, man, that's the part that kills me. Like, I understand the no timeout part, just so you can hunt Garland like he did. But I just don't know why he wasted so much time. Just go quick.
My thing, so I like the Garland matchup is very, very important because, again, that's someone you can attack. However, my problem with it is the fact that we've been doing it all year and it hasn't worked. That's where I'm like, just call it. Just try it. It's the regular season. You just want to try things out because, one, you're putting your faith in the players, right? Tatum needs to be better. Tatum needs to go faster. Tatum and the Celtics have given you no evidence this year that in that situation, they're going to perform correctly. They just haven't. We've seen it time and time again. So I feel like as the head coach, you need to know that, all right, my players are currently in a situation that they're not the best in. I got to call this timeout and we got to talk this through. And I got to put them in a position to be successful. That's my one problem with it. If Tatum had gone at 13 seconds, missed that shot, Celtics get to foul and then get another look at it, again, it's probably a whole nother conversation. My problem with the lack of timeout at the end of the game is just it hasn't worked. We've tried it. We continue to try it. It happened against Minnesota. It happened against Denver. It happened against
Indiana.
Indiana. It happened against Minnesota the first time. We've seen it against Philly. That first loss on the road against Philly. It's like, at what point do you just say, all right, this isn't working. My players aren't good in the situation. Let's try something. Let's not put them in the situation. Because quite frankly, Ian, since that Tatum lay-in against Brooklyn game 1, they haven't been very good taking the ball out and just going. So I don't know.
It's like, it's so weird. Like, I've never seen a team just not call a timeout. Like, I know the Celtics have been doing this for like 2 years now, but like, how weird is that? Like, you're like, you think like if you have the ball at the end of the game, you think you want to go back to the drawing board, draw a play up. Like, I don't know if you told Celtics fans like 3 or 4 years ago when Brad Stevens was the head coach and he was the master of out of timeout plays, you think like, you know, you would just want to draw up a play, you know, you would want to call a timeout, give him a breather, you know, but I don't know. I honestly don't know. And like, it's never going to change. So it kind of feels pointless talking about it, but like,
is it a problem that it won't change?
It just feels so weird. Like, what do you even say? It's just like, it's just so weird.
You know what I'm saying? Like, isn't that a problem that it's just, you think it will change?
No, it is a problem. It's just like, what are you going to do?
Oh, the one thing that like I will say is it's kind of unfortunate that they haven't had any of these shots fall, but like what percent of these late game, you know, buzzer beating shots that they've missed, what percentage of them have been like good looks? Because to me, I think like at least half of them have been like pretty solid looks. It's just so unfortunate that they can't convert. It's like we just lack the clutch gene.
Right, which is fair. Which is fair. But that goes back to my point I originally said. It's like, don't you think as the coach, you got to understand that, like, all right, we got to have a couple series of plays that it's a gimme where you're getting Porzingis at the rim or you're getting a cutting, right? It's just like, I feel like you got to add that.
I think it will. I think if you like just looking at Joe's development, like from year 1 to year 2, especially come postseason, like I think he gets it now.
Right.
Like because if you look at the back half of the Heat series, like he was like, oh shit, yeah, I got to call a timeout now. And it's like
it took him 03, but he got it though.
Yeah, I know.
Like I'm sure he's learned from his mistakes, and like the thing that I'm wondering now is the assistant coaches, like what's their take on it? Are they just gonna like let Joe continue to go no timeout? Or like you're telling me Sam Cassell's not in his ear right now saying
I was just thinking
Sam Cassell's definitely in his ear.
Thinking
on timeout. I work with Tatum in the post after every practice. Maybe we drop a play. Like you don't I don't know. Like that.
Well, that's the one thing I think I can feel really comfortable about is there's been improvement all year long with these guys. They've gotten better, especially Joe. And that's why I think I've tried to make it clear is that I wasn't in on Joe Mazzulla about 20 games ago because I thought there were a lot of problems that really weren't like fixing like that. Those third quarters were a big one. Those third quarters were really bad for about 45 games. And you haven't seen it recently. Even tonight, Cleveland made a push in that fourth quarter. They got the lead down to 4. Boston answered. So I think as Celtics fans, and you know myself included and us guys, I think that's something we can kind of rely on is that this team has improved. This team really wants to win. No doubt about that. And I think that when you look at Mazzulla, I see a guy that also is crazy about winning. So, you know, I think that's something where it's like, yes, this loss was embarrassing. It sucked. It was any word you can think to describe it is what it was tonight. But I think something you, as Celtics fans, you can kind of hold your hat down on is that, hey, listen, man, we're still 7 games ahead of the next guy. We are still 48-13. And there's no reason to, you know, have this loss on Tuesday, March 5th, 2024, and think to yourself, we're not going to win the championship. However, this adds a lot of pressure against Denver, guys. I will say, if you come out and you lay an egg against Denver, I'm not going to be worried, mind you. I think that if you're talking matchup in the finals, I'll be a little worried about Denver. Can we beat those guys? But if you're talking national media, and I know it doesn't matter, but this is a big one against Jokic and the gang.
Yeah, and I don't know why, but I feel like if this game happened last year, I would be a lot more angry. But we just came off an 11-game win streak where we literally played the best basketball in NBA history. And in a way, I'm not going to say you can excuse a 22-point loss in the fourth quarter, but I really feel like you can just chalk it up to, it happens if the Celtics do go out and beat Denver. But it was kind of remember when earlier this year when the Celtics got blown out by the Bucks, right. And if they didn't beat the Timberwolves the game before, it would have looked a whole lot worse. It's just kind of one of those things where it's
right.
Again, I'm not excusing the fact that they lost, and it was a terrible way they lost, but it just feels like the Celtics team has been able to bounce back. Right. And they've been able to take these losses on the chin and just kind of move on, which I don't think has happened in previous years.
That's super important because if you go back to that 2022 year, they hung their heads on that. If we lose, we're coming back and we're getting the next one. Mm-hmm. Game 5. We gave up Game 5 on or at home to Milwaukee. What happened Game 6? So I think this one will be another test. They haven't lost 2 straight games since November. Yeah. So it's if you come out and you respond against Denver, then all right, listen, you're going to respond. If you can fix the things within the margins where you don't really have to respond that often, then the wagon's really, really going. Yeah. Because
I was going to say that's the difference between this season and last season. If they just pop out and destroy Denver on Thursday night, then this will be known as a it happens game. But last season, what happened tonight was a pattern. We saw it a lot more. Right. And so they are taking strides in the right direction. So that's what I wanted to say. But Rob, go back to your point.
No, yeah. And I think that's right on. Very important. This hasn't been a habit. This hasn't been a pattern. That's why I think we're kind of in this weird spot talking about them where it's all right, we haven't seen it. Concerning, yeah, it's concerning, no doubt about it. But time to overreact? No, not at all. And then I think it's kind of let's wait and see, because if they come out and they beat Denver, then awesome. Then it's okay, well then this is a learning opportunity. This is Cleveland was a position you hadn't been in all year. You went through it, and to think this team wasn't going to blow a lead all year long would have just been, it happened. The last time it happened was Golden State the first time. It wasn't a huge lead, but we did kind of collapse in the fourth quarter. And then I think what happened for the next 4 months is they fixed it, and then it popped up again. So I do want to ask you guys this, though, because Denver's coming up, and this, in my opinion, is probably the biggest game of the year. 2 teams, the 2 best teams, the 2 favorites in March playing each other in the Mile High City. How important do you guys think, especially with how the Celtics played against the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight, how important do you think this win against Denver really is now?
I think it's more important for the media's agenda, honestly, just right. Because, if they beat us, then, oh yeah, they swept the Celtics in the regular season, they're going to win in the finals. But honestly think that the way Joe's looking at it is if they lose, all right, they're 11-2 over their last 13 onto Phoenix. What I think is more important is the habits they build in the game and how they're actually playing. The little things, how does Tatum play down the stretch? If it is a bumper to bumper game, how does Derek White respond? Because he only took 5 shots tonight, and that's really bothering me. Al Horford only played 19 minutes tonight. That's something that's, a little interesting. Are they saving him for Jokic? So I'm looking at the little things like that. But at the end of the day, if they don't win this, I think it's more so how they lose, if so. And at the end of the day, they would still be up 7 games in the Eastern Conference. And I think the media would care about it more than anybody else.
Yeah, and I do think this game means more to this team than other games in the past. Like, obviously, they're the defending champs. Nikola Jokic is the best player in the NBA. The Nuggets are overall maybe the best team in the NBA. And, it's going to be, a potential finals matchup. So you want to go out there. You want to play your best basketball. And, like, another weird thing that I just kind of remembered was Xavier Tillman on the injury report.
No.
Because he wasn't even dressed.
Oh.
So,
really?
Like, did you notice that? I noticed that, like, halfway through the game, they showed the bench. Xavier Tillman wasn't even dressed.
Huh.
I think he was sitting at the end of the bench. I think I saw him, and I thought
he wasn't in.
He wasn't.
He wasn't in
jerseys.
Celtics gear. Like, he
That's
wasn't in
weird.
his jersey. So, like, I don't really know what happened with that, but maybe they're just waiting for Thursday. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. It really did feel like they did not have this game on their mind.
Right.
No Donovan Mitchell, no Max Strus. You were just like, it happens. But I don't know. I think this game on Thursday is going to be a big game for the Celtics. I think if they go out there, they win. I think nobody remembers this game. And if they go out and lose, if they get blown out, then you're just like, damn, that kind of sucks. If they lose in crunch time again and it kind of goes down the way that it went down tonight, you kind of you're like, oh, okay, do we have a problem in crunch time? And if it just happens, I don't know. There's a bunch of different circumstances that can happen with the way the Celtics lose. But if they win, we won't have to think about it at all. We can just say, hey, honestly, it might be better if the Celtics make this a close game on Thursday and they end up winning. Like, maybe that's a better thing.
Well, I think like it's the outcome is not as important as the actual 48 minutes. If the C's play a really good brand of basketball, they're competing, the wheels are turning, Jokic and Murray are doing their thing, Brown and Tatum and Porzingis are doing their thing, they're looking good, they're moving the ball, they're playing good D, they're doing the things right. And you come out with a loss. I'm thinking to myself, okay, game 1, you lose in Denver, game 2, you can come back and respond. Right? That's your playoff finals mentality. Yeah. That's kind of what I hung my head on my with that first loss was that's a game 1 in a series. I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at as a team
for sure
in responding in game 2. So I think that's more so what I'm looking at with the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets, right? You got Jokic and Murray. They got the ring. Personally, I think this is a must-win game just because of what happened tonight. I think you got to respond and, kind of show the league, not that you need it, but show the league who you are again, because maybe they forgot for a couple nights, and I think they will. But I think that's what's most important with the C's is come out and really just do everything correctly, right? Do the game plan correctly. What happens. If you're missing open shots, you miss open shots. But execution-wise, just execute properly, because if you do that, you're going to put yourself in the best position to win. And I think is super important. There is a question
I don't know.
Talk about. I flashed it on the screen. But we kind of talked about this. Is this a bad sign or do we just quit?
We'll see. It's a TBD. That's what we kind of agreed on.
I think it's just wait to see, because like the thing with a team this good is that you can't really complain in the moment. Like you can't take anything for granted in the moment. You have to see what happens the next time.
Yeah, it hasn't been a pattern.
Next game.
Like this hasn't been a reoccurring thing like it was in last year's playoffs or last year's regular season. Like this team has always responded well coming off losses. So, let's see how the next 2, 3, 4 games go. So, I think that's
also if you remember, just thinking about it, if Jason Tatum if they didn't call the foul on Jason Tatum, the Celtics would have had the tip in.
Yep.
By Porzingis with 0.7 left.
Yep.
So like either way, you could have just. I mean, I don't know. It was just a rough game overall, and honestly, I'm not. I don't know. I'm talking myself out of this game being a big deal.
Well, that's why it kind of goes back to my earlier point where winning cures everything. Because you figure if Tatum does get the call, then he goes to the line. Hopefully, doesn't say I'm gonna make both.
I was getting
knocks him down, right? But
I was getting PTSD. I'm not gonna lie.
I was thinking about this tonight. It's like,
oh boy,
every time we come to Cleveland, it's something, man. It's like there's some bad energy in the air in that Cleveland.
Well, no, I said it like right from the jump. I'm like, Tatum missed a dunk, Drew missed a wide open corner three, and Jaylen Brown missed a layup. It felt like there was something crazy going on with the
And I was going to post
Hayward.
about that. I was going to post about that today. Was when Grant last time we were in Cleveland, Grant had the famous "I'm gonna make both."
Yep, Gordon Hayward. Don't forget.
Yeah, I mean, there's some
I'd rather not
juju in that Cleveland arena, man. So I don't know what it was tonight with the C's, but I don't think it's a bad sign. It's the first time this has happened in so long. Did they quit? I don't think they quit, but I think they also just kind of were like, screw this. Quite frankly, when you got a guy like Dean, it's not like, right, you got Donovan Mitchell getting going in the fourth where that motivates you. And you got Dean Wade going, getting it going. I think they're thinking, oh my, no way, right? Like, no way this guy's doing it. So I think that's what it was tonight. I think the Celtics got caught way too comfortable with Denver coming up by 20 in the fourth. The right guys made the right plays and for Cleveland. And, I think that's what it is. But what I think is important is just coming out strong against the Denver Nuggets on Thursday night. That's a late game, guys. That's a 10 o'clock game.
Yeah. Also, you're going to hear a lot of discourse about the Celtics over the next 2 days about how they're not great in the clutch. And
ignore it.
This team is basically, they're frauds now that they've lost one game after they won 11 in a row. I would ignore it. Like we've been saying this entire time, just wait for Thursday. Make your opinions on what the Celtics issues are after the game against the Nuggets, because it's not worth listening to guys like Colin Cowherd or Felger Maz or whoever's on First Take. If they talk about this game, they're going to talk about which one.
The one they
Felger
said
Maz
that,
or Colin Cowherd?
That they're peaking too
Colin
early
Cowherd?
after beating the Warriors by 50.
It
was 98-5 Felger and Maz, and they were saying how they weren't putting anything to the Celtics because Celtics Warriors game.
Not going to say anything about the Celtics until June.
Right?
Yeah. So
yeah,
and then also you're gonna have that, and then you have Colin Cowherd saying that the Celtics are just the Buffalo Bills of the NBA apparently. And
Perk's gonna switch up now.
Shout out to Stephen A. Smith because he feels like the only one in the national media that's a Celtics fan.
He's got our back. He's got our back.
I am shocked that of all people it's Stephen A. Smith,
and Kenny Smith. Shout out to Kenny Smith, man. He's always got our back.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. It's really not worth listening to the national media's opinion on this game until you see what the Celtics do.
Come here and listen to us, man. Instead, we'll give it to you. But guys, again, like I said, that's a late game. That's a 10 o'clock game. Late ending. We're still going to be live here, so come back. We're going to be talking about it late at night. Celtics Nuggets. Come back here. Again, disappointing outcome for the C's tonight. Obviously, that 11-game win streak was snapped by the Cleveland Cavaliers and more importantly by Dean Wade. Heartbreaker for the Celtics, a rare one for a very good basketball team. Guys, before we close the show, you guys got anything else you want to add or chime in before we head out?
The Celtics moved from first in the Eastern Conference to first at the end of the day. So we do have a 7-game lead, and there's a reason why they have a 7-game lead. So, they just got to continue to hang their heads high and respond.
Yeah, we got a Jaylen Brown quote. Says, this is a mentality loss. Said he's unhappy with how Boston approached the game and that the Celtics were not intentional enough. That's pretty much it.
That's a good take.
The Celtics, that was a good quote. This is a mentality loss. They just did not have the right mentality for this game. But
coming off a 50
like I said,
win,
if anything, if we've seen anything this season, and it felt like forever ago since the Celtics have lost a game, when the Celtics lose a game, they normally respond in a pretty good way. Like Celtics lost to the Lakers on February 4th and won 11 games in a row. Or on February 1st, and then won 11 games in a row, won the rest of the games in the month of February. So I'm excited for Thursday. I really am. I'm really hoping this is an NBA Finals matchup. I really want to see Celtics Nuggets in the finals. So
yeah, Celtics.
I'm excited.
Yeah, I don't think I could watch the Clippers in the finals because
of do it. It's the Clippers.
Yeah, I don't think they
really
will.
Trust James. You trust a playoff team with Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Paul George?
Yeah, I don't. But even if the small chance they do make it, just watching Harden and Westbrook in the finals. It's just like the ISO ball and the foul baiting and stuff. It would just kill me.
Well, I will say this. That Brown quote makes a lot of sense. You win by 50. You're going to come out feeling like you're invincible. The Celtics thought they were invincible tonight, and they found out that you're not.
One more thing.
Go
if the
for it.
Celtics have, if I have a nickel for every time the Celtics have lost on an overturned foul call this season, I would have 2 nickels. And it's weird that it's happened. It's not a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. But yeah,
Ian would be a very rich
Indiana
man.
Game when Jaylen Brown missed. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you.
It's weird that 2 of our losses this season have come on overturned foul calls. So what are you gonna do?
And you know what? I will say, I'm happy. I'm happy we didn't get that call. Call me crazy, but we didn't deserve to walk away with the win here and maybe gloss over this. A loss totally puts this on those players' minds more. And I think I had some flame. If you get if you walk away with the win here, you're thinking, oh, whoa, thank God, on to the next one. Obviously, it's the same thing, right? Oh, darn, on to the next one. But, maybe you're going to make a more emphasis to fix these things because it did result in a loss and that win streak was broken. But again, guys, like I said, thank you so much for joining us here live. Shout out to Finn, a.k.a. Celtics Insiders, for coming on. Always a great time. I'm Rob, Ian, Finn, guys, from all of us. Rough one tonight, man. Rough one. But until next time, Denver, late at night, guys, we hope to see you back in here. Go Celtics.